Dankjewel. Het publiek in Utrecht is altijd het beste. Iedere keer als we in Utrecht zijn, rijden we samen naar huis. Dan zeggen we Utrecht het best. Dankjewel. Voor wie thuis zit te kijken, ja, doe het nog. Voor wie thuis zit te kijken, we zijn te gast in Seats to Meet in Utrecht. Kijk je on demand, dan kun je nog een andere uitzending terugkijken waar we spraken over de toekomst van werk. We gaan nu een half uurtje praten over de toekomst van onderwijs. We doen dat in het Engels. Omdat we twee gasten hebben waarvan er één Engels zijn voertaal is. John Moravec. You released your book today, Nomad Society. We're going to talk about that later. Claire Boonstra kennen wij al lange tijd van Leer. Daar is zij nu weg. Haar nieuwe missie is het onderwijs verbeteren, zal ik maar zeggen. Dus daar gaan we over praten, voor die twee onderwerpen. Iedereen die thuis kijkt, de hashtag is TSMboek. En die hashtags die vissen wij weer uit de Twitter-tijdlijn, zodat vragen natuurlijk welkom zijn. Even kijken, dat is eigenlijk het belangrijkste stukje. Oké, so we talk in English for the rest, and we talk about the future of education. I have two children. One is 16, a girl. The other is a boy. He's 14. This morning he woke up. Normally he's grumpy when he wakes up. Today he was cheerful, etc. Do you know why?
You have to go to school.
Tomorrow is the start. Is 2 weeks off from tomorrow.
It's a vacation from school.
Yeah. He hates school.
So do I.
Yeah. Did you?
Well, I did. Didn't you? Or did you love it?
No, I just did it.
Did either of you love school?
I didn't.
Claire?
Not really.
So are we doing something wrong?
Or is it part of the thing? Do we need to, when you're 14, you need to hate the stuff as well?
Oh, so you need to hate something in order to appreciate it later.
That's why I have the school system.
That sounds very sadomasochistic, doesn't it? Yeah.
Okay, we do something wrong. So where can we start to make it better?
We can start doing stuff better now. We can start envisioning where we want to be in the future and start building that today and co-creating with kids. It's that simple.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And co-creating, so what would you do then? So for example, in 2 weeks time, we start again, the school in Amsterdam. My son is there again, grumpy like he was the rest of the year.
So what is school for you?
For me, for him.
For you, what is school for you?
A period in your life when you learn a lot of social stuff, you learn to cope with other people, etc. And you learn, no?
Now let's cut the bullshit. What is school for you?
Okay, you tell us what is school according to you. Let's turn it around.
What is it or what should it be? That's a different question.
Let's call it what it is. Daycare. I mean, really, let's call it what it is. It's daycare. You put kids in there so you don't have to worry about them. They go through year after year and they come out as, finished industrial products, but it is really a daycare system so you don't have to worry about it. So how often do you really worry? I mean, how much do you know what your kid is learning precisely?
Well, we had another guest in our show not so long ago. His name is Maurice de Hond. In Holland, he's quite famous for having ideas how to change the educational system. He's always saying, in school, you prepare kids to live in the 80s. When they come out of school, we're in the year where we are again.
Right, and that's a big problem. We're preparing kids for jobs that existed in the 1980s when the job books that most job counselors are working with, when the books are published from. We're not thinking about jobs that will exist, say, 20 years in the future. When kids are done with school, they graduate, they've gone through all the, they jumped all the necessary hoops necessary to supposedly get a job. But if they're preparing for the wrong stuff, I mean, really, what's the point? Should we be preparing kids for something different, or something better?
So
Okay, Claire.
why don't we do it then? Where does it go wrong?
I think we're not thinking about our futures all that much. We're not thinking about the future of society. We're not thinking about the future of work. And these are some big things. And when you're not thinking about that, then of course you have a huge mismatch between what we're doing in education and what kids ultimately will do. So we're preparing kids for jobs that existed in the previous century, but not for jobs that exist today or in the future, where maybe, gosh, they might even have to create their own jobs rather than wait for somebody to give it to them.
Claire,
This is a big change, isn't it?
Claire, a couple of months ago, most people in our, how do you call that, world know you from augmented reality, from a layer. A couple of months ago, you switched instantly to education and you started Operation Education. What are you doing with that?
Well, first of all, I was still ramping down my activities at Layer, and I announced my new step at a stage at TEDx, Amsterdam Education. What I've been doing, I gave myself 6 months to figure out, first of all, what are we looking at? What is this whole education thing? What needs to change, and what is my role in there? What's my value? And I'm now halfway. I'm at 3 months. And what I'm seeing is that the main problem we have is the question of norms. Somehow we want so much security because it's about education. It's scary because it's about the most precious things we have, the children, and we want to have a feeling of control. So we put out on a lot of norms. But the problem is if your children don't fit the norms, they have or they are a problem. And the funny thing is that the norms, that's not put on them by, by school. It's actually us. Because we talk a lot, especially in our world, the new media people, etc., and previously on stage, we talk a lot about the new things that are necessary in life. But still, as parents, if we look at what a good school is about, we take the list of Elsevier or Mr. Donkers in the Volkskrant, and we look at the list of good schools. And good schools are schools which create high scores on the final exams, and which create high CITO scores, standardized test scores.
And we, as parents, we also need daycare.
Well, that's the secondary problem, but I'm more looking at the whole norms thing, because that's something that we, all of us, keep in place. So we can all talk about, it needs to change, but actually we are creating the problem ourselves if we don't ask for something different, if we don't look at our children a different way, if we force our children, you have to get these scores, etc.
You've got this kind of things only change if there is an alternative. What is the alternative?
Well, there's not one alternative, luckily. The funny thing, so I'm now 3 months in this space. I didn't get any more major new insights about what is cooking here in the last few weeks, but still every single day 5 to 10 new initiatives, people, whatever, who are working on solutions or have solutions, hit my mailbox. And that surprises me most. There are so many solutions in the forms of new school types, alternative school types, programs, initiatives, platforms, you name it. But we don't know it. We have no idea. We have no idea, as being normal people, being normal parents. But the education innovation scene is really active. And all amongst each other, they know a lot. But somehow it's not hitting the surface of people just like you and me who have children who want to have better education for our children.
Isn't the problem as well that, say, as a parent, to me, it's now very important, but in 2 years' time, my daughter has finished this bit, and in 1 year, I hope my son as well. So, this problem is, to me, that problem is over.
But is it really over? I mean, let's do a quick show of hands to the audience here. How many people have lost their job or had to change jobs within the past couple of years? I mean, really, look at us. I mean, look at all that. All right? And this is an accelerating fact in the modern economy, right? We're trained for jobs that we can't keep anymore. So education isn't something that's just for kids, it's for you and me. You and me both need access to education, new educational opportunities all the time. And so we have to stop thinking about it, gosh, after 2 years I can stop worrying about it. No, you have to keep worrying about it because the world's changing so fast.
Well, we have a really simple thing. Every Tuesday we ask two people to come to our studio to talk about a subject they know a lot about. So every Tuesday we have a bit of our education sorted.
Yeah, continue on that. But actually, that's a very interesting thing, though, because what you're doing, though, is you're doing something that's more unique as individuals. I think this tied in with the earlier talk. Talk about building a society that is much more based on values, enabling serendipity, etc. You two are you guys provide unique value into the conversation, social conversation. So as long as you continue to add value in things are looking really good. But that's because you're unique. All right, you're adding unique value to the conversations they're having in society. If you're sitting at a board meeting or anywhere else, you're looking around, and you ask yourself, would this conversation be any different if I wasn't here? If the answer is no, you better get out. All right, because you need to be valued for your unique contributions in. So if we're educating kids to be exactly the same, follow the same norms, follow the same standards, these are people that are not going to survive board meetings, or even be successful webcasters. This is big stuff.
Yeah, so, but you really are a follower of the theory of the exponential times, as we call it, you know, that changes in society go faster and faster, techniques are changing, meaning that people are educated for jobs that probably don't exist anymore in 5 years' time. Is that basically what you're saying? And how can we solve that? I mean, in the end, people have to learn skills.
Right. Well, there's two things we can do. Number one is we can attend to the creation of an ecology of options. The other one is to focus on soft skills development. And those are two key areas that we identified in our last book, Nomad Society.
Explain yourself, please.
Okay, attending to an ecology of options. Right now we have a monocultural approach to education. In the Netherlands, 99.96% of schools are pretty much identical. Mm-hmm. Right? You follow one formula for schools. It's kind of like...
And have been for the last 40 years, I think.
Yeah, it's kind of like, well, it's kind of like being a potato farmer in Ireland in the 18th century or 19th century. It's not a really good idea. Do you really want to invest in one form of education? Because you're going to produce one product which may be completely obsolete. So I think we need to attend to an ecology of options. There are other strategies out there. In Nomad Society, we identify democratic education, where kids are empowered to co-create their own educational outcomes along with parents and other adults is probably the most promising. The other one is soft skills. Now, soft skills are things like leiderschap, right? Ondernemerschap, right? These are things that we cannot teach very well in the schools, okay?
Did you teach him those words? Or?
No, it's also the didacticism.
Yeah. But these are things that we don't teach very well in schools because you can't take a test on it. There is not an Excel spreadsheet I've ever seen that measures a person's leadership or being a nice person. So if you don't have the particular knowledge that you need to be successful at a job that doesn't exist yet, but maybe you've got the soft skills to survive the job interview, and that's some pretty cool stuff to have. But schools are completely missing that right now.
Earlier on, you said, and that's a question I think Arjan Korevaar asked. You get a lot of examples of people with good initiatives, etc., in your mailbox, and he said, okay, education has to change, but how? Examples, please. So, what are the good examples we all should know that you get in your mailbox?
Okay, I'm gonna name a pretty extreme one, and you already touched upon it. It's the schools such as, for example, Sudbury Valley schools. There are schools here in the Netherlands who there's a building, but the children are between age 4 and 18, all in one school. There are no year classes. There is no fixed curriculum. You are not forced to learn anything. But actually what the school does, there are adult staff members, they facilitate the children for whatever they want to do. And it's actually the children who decide how they are going to develop themselves. And it's not all about fun. It's really actually, the children have to take charge of their own education. And the school facilitates. And it's not like, hey, I want to do violin classes and then start to arrange it. No, it's actually the children who can bring in a proposal to the school board, basically. And also, both the children and the adults take part in the school board. It's a democratic decision-making system. And that's how they decide on their structure. And actually what you see, the end result are children who are extremely good at life skills, at facilitating meetings, for example. Today we had our session over here, and a couple of children, or nowadays adults from Sudbury, former Sudbury Valley schools, they started to organize things. I didn't even have to ask them. They didn't ask, shall I do this and that? No, they just arranged it. Extremely powerful, self-aware young people and apparently, so the system didn't get in the way. The system facilitated. And this is a pretty extreme example. And not
because in the end, the system asks us all to be at the same levels of all the other things as well.
So the interesting thing is that they are in a big fight with the system, because the system asks for everybody to have all the tick boxes from.
That's why I like punk music in the 70s. Fuck the system.
Exactly. No, well, I mean, they are really trying to, to get to have an existence. But what happens is that they out of principles don't want to meet all the tick boxes of the education inspection. They are being considered as a non-school, even though they are privately funded. And because they are a non-school, the parents of the children are being taken to court because they have their children on a non-school and are not obeying the leerplichtwet. So that's what's happening currently. But if you look at the school, that's also what the inspectors say. They say, well, yeah, we see that it's a good school because children learn a lot. They learn so much. But yeah, the thing is, I was actually in the court.
But Claire, isn't it also a problem we all look at the schools? Yeah. I mean, but isn't it also a problem that parents just don't want to take responsibility any longer for educating their children? I mean, everybody's working 40, 50 hours a week. They need daycare. When they come at home, they're tired. I think parents are part of the problem. I mean, they can do all those things you describe, you know, outside those few hours probably that the children are at school and have to learn maths or their languages. I mean, they also have to learn that. Where are the parents in your equation?
Yeah, interesting question. I mean, it's about waking up. We all need to wake up. I mean, why are we putting ourselves in this whole status ladder thing in society that you have to get up and up and up and up and up and, you know, work, you know, and not have a life? But that is a different thing. But actually, that's the real thing I want to touch. That's really what I think we should change. And I want to start with changing education. This doesn't answer your question, but not all parents are like that, luckily. And for me, my main quest is about creating awareness. It's about creating awareness of the fact that we are in this system, that we're putting this on ourselves, that we don't even ask ourselves the questions, why school? Why year classes? Why a fixed curriculum? Why this curriculum? Why do we put so much emphasis on math and reading? What is brilliance mean? What is gifted? What kind of giftedness? Are we talking about gifted children in math, or gifted in leadership, or in ability to express yourself, or in ability to create awesome things and influence your context? So actually that's of course the hardest thing to do, is about becoming more aware, everybody, parents and school boards and students, everybody, that we have to start asking ourselves these questions. Because that's where it all starts. Because if we are all in the system, I sometimes use the image of the matrix. We are in the matrix. We have the sunglasses on, and we are not even aware that we are in the matrix. Because we keep the system in place. So we have to, everybody out here, we have to ask ourselves those questions, and we have to start talking about it. Because everybody here in the audience can start to change, because we can all talk about this with our friends and with our, you know, with our neighbors.
Just one personal question. From augmented reality to education. Explain me, please.
Well, you could have also asked me this question from civil engineering to IMO, from IMO to Unilever, from Unilever to Talpa Digital, from Talpa Digital. So this is me. I'm a very idealistic person. I always, when I studied civil engineering, I wanted to build the Boonstra Bridge. I just want to create big things that have a big impact. And I mean, also Layer was started out of a lot of idealism. We still have that. The three founders, we've all been at the table here. And this is just continuing. And I felt that with Layer coming to a more mature stage, that I could move on to do even more impactful things. And Layer will have its major impact, and the baby Layer, as I call it, is fine with its new parent.
And now you have a baby on your own, and it needs education.
Yeah, exactly. Two. Yep.
The thing is, you of course there are a lot of things talking about the system, but like Claire says, there's a lot of things people could do now. So what can I do now?
For you as a parent. Yeah. For you as a parent, or broader, the thing you could do as a parent is to wake up. I mean, wake up a little bit, to get involved in your community, get involved in your school. Start asking questions. What are you educating for? And what are you educating? Are kids learning what to learn or how to learn? And start asking these basic questions. Start connecting with your government. I mean, your town council members, your mayors, your MPs, and start engaging in conversations about this thing. I mean, governments by design operate very, very slowly. And schools report to governments, it's even slower. But markets change overnight. The world changes overnight. And there's some tough questions we have to ask when we start thinking about, gosh, how might we restructure some of this stuff? So you need to get really active and really involved, ask questions, and start driving some conversations.
an important thing is, I think what you say is it should be more important to learn how to learn than to learn what. So
Okay, but then let me throw in one question from Arjen Cordova from Twitter. Okay, my future kids can cook, play games, deliberate, make or make music, maybe are even ready for leadership. But what about writing a letter?
What about writing a letter? Well, how many? So what's wrong with not writing a letter?
I mean, the examples you also give are about schools where the children are in charge of what they learn. I mean,
right.
Your son would love it.
Okay, you're operating under an assumption that if you do not tell kids what to learn, they will not learn it. Now, that is a garbage assumption.
Okay,
right?
Kids
are naturally curious. It's what kids do.
That is a garbage assumption.
Kids learn all the time. We all learn all the time. It's what our brains are programmed to do. So that is based on an assumption that has no scientific backing at all.
If writing the letter is necessary to get the things done that you want to get done, because that's important for you, you will learn how to write a letter in a really, really good way.
I fully agree. I mean, my daughter is 10. She asked me already 2 years ago, Daddy, I want to learn to type. Because she saw me typing, and I typed rather fast, and she couldn't, but she wanted to write emails to her friends. So she asked me, can I learn to type? She did an online course in 3 months. She is 10 times faster than I am. I mean, I agree, but still...
There's also stuff that when we're told what to learn, we don't learn anyways. How much of the stuff from school you're told you had to learn, you didn't like anyways, so you passed the test, but you didn't learn it anyways. I mean...
Forget it the next week, that's what you...
Because you want to forget it the next week. You learn what you want to learn. You learn what interests you. You learn what your passions drive you to follow. And writing is part of that. It's part of the human experience.
We talk about the Dutch situation. You maybe have a broader view of what's happening around the world. What are there countries, places where they do it better?
Oh man, this is a tough question. In Finland.
Well, 10 years ago in Finland, they did quite well.
No, Finland right now might be the best-looking kid in a very ugly family.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But maybe you can tell us what's good about the Finnish situation.
Well, we have PISA studies internationally. Finland is very good at PISA studies, but PISA is a measurement system for last century education. We are pretty good at last century education, but I would say we are also pretty good at the new learning as well. If you look at the school sizes, they're very, very small schools. They look like workshops. There is only 1 or 2 teachers if you go to the countryside anywhere. We are only 5.5 million people. So in countries like Germany, you know, there is just too many people, too little teachers.
That's the problem.
Finland, I think, also has another advantage that they're in teacher training, also with teachers, that they're bringing some real outstanding people, but they're also engaged in a metacognitive conversation of, so what are we teaching for, how are we doing it, etc. So even though that much of it is attached to the old ways or old standards, but at least understanding why they're doing that.
Someone, Evert Haas, says in a way, of course, there have been like 100 or more years ago have been initiatives as well. And Maria Montessori already showed that children can take charge of their own learning. Of course, that's true. But where did it go wrong in the past? Why didn't we all see it like that?
Well, the problem is that even before, with Montessori, John Dewey writing over 100 years ago is still radical in today's literature. That we've talked about changing education so much, but we haven't changed a damn thing. And we have to stop talking about change and start actually trying things out.
Okay,
and we become so afraid of failure, we keep failing.
Let me throw in something else. I mean, this has been a subject people are discussing about for the last 40 years. That's not something that started with the internet or the digitization or social media. What has this added to this discussion over the last 5 years? You know, the fact that we have social media, the fact that we can learn at home, that every household is connected. What does that add to this discussion?
Well, forces bigger change. Look at, for example, university education with the massive online open courses. You can follow for free courses at Harvard, MIT, etc. There is no way that digital can fully replace the real human factor. However, you can get your class, you can get your training just by doing self-study at those courses. And with university degrees becoming increasingly more expensive, but their value is going down because too many people have a higher education and there are no jobs available, it will force change. And the same is also happening here. I mean, we are increasingly aware of the need for change. And so many people also around me are taking coaching and personal development and NLP courses and so we're becoming increasingly aware. And the change is happening, and somehow they're really fertile grounds now for change. Only so, you know, the cracks are already in the dam, but we need to accelerate it because a lot of damage is actually happening right now.
We had one teacher in our show, I forgot his name, who already turned his own system around.
Jelmer Evers?
Jelmer, yes. He what he did was he made video records of all his, lessons. And he said, I'll turn the system around. What you normally do at home, we'll do it in the class. And what we normally do in the class, you do it at home. Yeah. You know, it's a video, you watch my lectures. You can do it at home, put them on your iPod when you cycle to school. While the homework you do, that's interactive. Then you need, the teacher to be there. How do you look at a guy like that?
Yeah, so Jelmer is part of the initiative as well. This method is called flipping the classroom. He's also now, turning back a little bit on that because one method is not the ideal method, not for everybody. The thing is that everybody has its own learning method. So no imposed system will work for everybody. Everybody has its own learning method. You know that you learn differently than you do. So we need to look at that. We need to facilitate that. And the funny thing is when I tell that, a lot of people say, yes, but we can never afford that because that would require 20,000 teachers in one school, etc. Well, the funny thing is that's again, if you look from a perspective of that you have to teach. But there are also examples of schools where the teachers also went out of the way a little bit and facilitated self-directed learning. And they were just there for the human factor, to facilitate the children, to really look at and into the children. What do you need to achieve the things that you want to achieve? And can I maybe help you find your way to find everything about microbiology? Right? And then the school experienced that with a lot less teachers, they could have a much better output out of their education, actually.
Can I point out the elephant in this room?
What? The elephant?
There's an elephant in this room. And that is, it's a pink elephant, I think. Oh, with, polka dots. We're using new technologies to teach the same old shit. And we need to think a little bit beyond that. We're putting technologies in front of us, all right? It's obscuring, perhaps, education. It's obscuring real learning. And we need to get away from the modes of, say, information transfer, but towards actual knowledge creation. And knowledge is a very personal thing. It's got tacit and explicit elements. Explicit knowledge is what you get out of reading something on your iPad, but the tacit knowledge you have to learn by actually doing, right? You combine these two things together, you've got personal knowledge, and that's what makes us very unique, right? That's what makes us successful. And that's what's going to get you the job in the future.
Okay, I think that's a great
that
conclusion.
That is the best
to this,
conclusion we could have had. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much for watching at home. And if you're watching on demand, you know that there's something like 120 interviews Roland and I did where you can learn a lot from, I think. For example, we have got one guy who used to be at school, and he made 5 minutes edits from it. And he said, by doing that, I learned more than the whole period at school. Because, of course, when you need to make a summary, you first need to listen to it. You need to understand it more or less. Otherwise, you can't make a summary.
Explain it.
Yeah, so that's a good example, I think. Thank you very much. Dank jullie allemaal hier. En Fast Moving Targets is de site waar je nog veel meer moois kan vinden. Dankjewel.